I'm going to start this way, being at a primarily undergraduate institution. When I work with new faculty and they ask me, oh, I see you teach organic chemistry. And I actually say, no, I don't. I actually don't teach organic chemistry. And they say, well, what are you talking about? I say, I actually teach students. And I don't have anything better to say to them for the rest of our time together. That's the best thing that I can say, because I think it points out what my approach is and what the approach of most faculty at primarily undergraduate institutions needs to be. I'd like to try to create a vision in your head of what it might be like to be in my job. And it may speak to you, and it may resonate with you, and it may not. So that's my goal. It'll give you a sense of what I do, what my days are like, and how I see my job. Let me just start a little bit. I like the stories. I like stories. Every talk should simply be a story. If you don't have a story to tell, you shouldn't be given a talk. So here's a little bit of my story. I was a physics major when I was an undergraduate. This story horrifies my students. And there was this girl. And a lot of good stories start with there was this girl or there was this guy. And a lot of them you can't tell, at meetings. But there was this girl. And so my girlfriend said, wouldn't it be great if we could take organic chemistry together and study together? I'm like, okay. I don't know why I said okay, but I did. So I take the class. I'm in organic chemistry. I'm not a chemistry major. I had no interest in organic chemistry. And the first test I get an A. I'm thinking, yeah, that's not so hard. And the second test I get a D. And I show my students, current students, I teach organic chemistry to students. And third test I get an A, fourth test I get a D, and then I get an A on the final. What is that? And so the professor, pardon the language, came up at the end and he said, Malachowski, you need to get off your ass. And I knew he was going to tell me how I needed to do that next. And he said, you're going to come into my lab and do research. And that's how this whole story started. And I became so invested in doing undergraduate research, I then went to the University of North Carolina, got my Ph.D. in organic chemistry, and I now do organic chemistry. So my first message to you is one that's already been stated. We like to think in a linear way. Everyone here is a scientist. The world is not linear, the world is chaotic. And so how do you think in a linear way in a chaotic world? And I think you need to think of that in terms of getting jobs and doing the kind of things that you might want to do. So my life completely changed on a whim. And I think that there's a real message there. Primarily undergraduate institutions like mine, the University of San Diego. We're not the University of California, San Diego. We don't have graduate programs. We have about 8,500 students. We're a private Catholic school. We sit on a hill. You see us. We have beautiful views of Mexico and the bay and the ocean. We graduate about 40 chemistry majors a year, so we're not real small, but we're not big. We're kind of medium-sized. My life consists of teaching, research, scholarship, and service and engagement in the community. In many ways, the job is similar to those at research universities, but quite different in many other ways. And I'd like to sort of just give you some sense of what that might look like. I chose this career because someone told me I was pretty good at teaching. When I was at North Carolina, I won teaching awards. I decided I would do a teaching postdoc, so I went to Gettysburg College, did a teaching postdoc. At the University of San Diego, we have these teaching postdocs. We have about 5 of them currently in my department. So we have folks who come, they do research, and they teach. And we have connections with Scripps and so on, so they do some of their research there. I like my job. I have the best job on earth for me. I love what I do. But that's not going to be true for everyone in every position. And I think you'll see a whole range of different things. You really do need to think about what it is that you really care about. I would say that the thing that resonates most with me is this thing about passion. I talk to my students all the time about 2 things, passion and motivation. I was not passionate and I was not motivated when I took organic chemistry. And so I was not all that successful in that class, but I think I've done better. Let me tell you some of the pros and cons to my job. I'll start with the cons. If you don't like to teach, find a better job. We teach about 4 or 5 classes a year. At undergraduate institutions, that will range up to about 8 classes per year, so that's a fairly heavy teaching load. There's a sense of professional isolation when you talk about collaborations and connections. You may be the only biochemist in a department of 6 people, for example. And over time, you can feel very isolated. So it's really important to have collaborators and connections with other folks. But it's a never-ending challenge to feel connected to your discipline. We have limited resources compared to what your aspirations might be. We're lower, in a sense, on the pecking order when it comes to scientific productivity. And I think at times we are so pulled in many different ways, there are stresses put on the system. If you talk to faculty at primarily undergraduate institutions, and this is probably true for most people in most jobs these days, they say the hardest thing is balance. How do you balance all the things you want to do, personal and professional? When I think of the pros to my job, I have total flexibility and control over what I do. I don't report to anyone in a sense. I have a department chair, I have a dean, but once a year I give them a sense of what I've done, and that's it. And I love that. To me, control and flexibility over my time is one of the most important things that I have. I can take on many different activities. So today, I'm actually not thinking about any of you at all today, frankly. As a graduate of the University of North Carolina, at about 6 o'clock, I've got a basketball game. All I'm thinking about is basketball right now, by the way. I don't even care. I'm just like thinking about basketball. We have this much to win in the national, come on. So I can take on a lot of activities. So for example, I am the faculty athletic rep on my campus, which may not mean anything to you, but I serve on NCAA committees and go to the NCAA convention and the Final Four sometimes and do those kinds of things. I was a student athlete. And so the lesson is I try to connect my personal interests with my professional life. That was something that was already stated. And it's really important to me. I also can take on many other tasks. I've chaired the faculty. I've chaired all sorts of committees. I am currently the interim chair of the theology department, which my friends laugh at. It will end soon. I'm not a particularly religious person. I like to think of myself as a very spiritual person, though, and it really has been a wonderful opportunity for me. You don't bring in a chemist to chair a department, by the way, if things are beautiful and things are going really well. So it's been a bit of a challenge. But I also can teach whatever it is I want to teach and do it in the way that I want to teach. So, for example, I teach with lots of people on campus, philosophers or political scientists or so on. I routinely teach a class in London every other summer, the chemistry of sport. I did it when the Summer Olympics were in London. That was the first time I did it. We look at atoms and molecules and structure and bonding by looking at golf balls and tennis rackets and rowing shells and performing enhancing drugs. And it's an awful lot of fun. I taught in Florence this past January the chemistry of the Renaissance. It was really a history and philosophy of science class. So there's tremendous opportunities to take on what it is you really care about. And I think that's the lesson when people ask me, how are you successful? What does it take to be successful? First of all, it really is motivated. Everyone in this room is capable. Every person in this room is capable. But are you motivated and are you in the right position? And that's what you need to try to sort out. I think the people who are successful are self-starters. Basically, if you take a job at an institution like mine, they give you a key and you check the teaching schedule when you first start, and there you go. And that's true in most jobs. All of a sudden, you're confronted with, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. I am a fraud. And how did I get here? And then you need to figure out what to do about that. I do believe that right now you should be thinking about what you care about, what passions you have. You should be working towards those passions, and you should live those passions. I turned 60 this year, and I'm thinking, what's the point of all of this? And I realize it really is about passions and motivations and community. Most undergraduate institutions value community a great deal, and we're a Catholic institution. Community is really important. What will you bring to the community? Balanced life is really important. I think you really need to understand what the expectations are for a job, whether it's at an undergraduate institution. I'm amazed at how many people come and interview for jobs, and they really don't know what it is that this place is all about. That really does surprise me. But knowing what the expectations are is not the same as just doing those things. I find the people who are most successful are the ones who do their thing with confidence and connect it to what the goals and aspirations of the area are. But really, what do you bring? When we look to hire people, I look for builders. I want someone to come in and show me what you will bring to us and what we will be that we're not now. What will you do to help shape us and change us and make us more than what we are? Otherwise, why hire someone just to be like the rest of us? So I think that it's really important that you think of yourself as a builder. You're going to help this unit move in some way. It's really important. Community is really important. And I think that folks who think broadly at an undergraduate institution, as I've tried to describe a little bit, you really can be confronted with a lot of things that are not science. And so whether that speaks to you or not, you really do need to think of ways to embrace the campus itself. The other thing is we embrace the community. So the University of San Diego prides itself on community work. So we have lots of relationships across the border. We have trans-border institutes. The border is only 15 miles from where we're standing. To us, border issues are really important. So we really value those kinds of things, and that really matters. I'll wrap it up this way. If you really like a balanced and challenging group of expectations, you'll be expected to have undergraduates working with you. You'll be expected to get grants and have external funding. You'll be expected to publish papers, all those kinds of things. But you'll really focus on students. What differentiates our research in a way is we also I don't want to overstate it, we focus a lot more on process as much as product. I think that's true in graduate education too. It really matters. But if you like a place where you'll have to think broadly, you'll have to do a lot of activities, it might be the kind of place for you. And the last thing I'll say is what was said before. It's all about your passions. You really need to figure them out. And you know when you need to figure them out? Today. Today's a great day to figure it out. And as I say to my students as I finish and I walk off, have the greatest day of your life. Thank you.